Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Way T Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. We've got a great show for you lined up. We are talking to Dave Sherwin, and he is a certified fitness nutrition coach, entrepreneur, podcaster, and practitioner of mindfulness and meditation. I know, and you know, how important that is, especially in today's world. Of course, some interesting things about Dave. In his 11 years in the health and wellness space, he has developed the Dirobi Diet. So if you hate dieting, maybe this is something that you want to try. The top 7 easy to follow health practices that will help people lose weight easily while eating normal foods and without difficult calorie counting or elimination of normal foods such as carbs or fats. This is who doesn't want to know about that? Now, of course, at the age of 47, what's really interesting is he qualified and competed for the triathlon in the Olympic Distance National Championships in Vermont and finished in the top 25% of all competitors. And he completed a Spartan Beast in 4 hours. And we had some people talking about the Spartan. That's intense. And last year at the age of 52, he set a personal best record at 405-pound deadlift. So he is the owner of Dirobi.com. We'll talk about that, which is a wellness site where he sells his own line of supplements, including bestsellers like Pounds and Inches Drops and Mimi's Miracle Fighters and Eat Anything RX and Mimi's Miracle Turmeric. He's the author of the 7 Simple Principles for Phenomenal Health and the host of the Dirobi Health Show. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So we were talking before the call and we found a common connection. You used to live up in Canada and in Kelowna and of course in White Rock, you met your wife. But I'm curious about how did you get to this place where you wanted to develop the Dirobi diet and also how you ended up getting into these triathlons? Because I think there's kind of an upsurge in interest in that. So if you can give us the backstory of how you got to where you are today, that'd be really great.
Okay, sounds good. Well, my interest in health started as a teen. I was a very, very shy, backwards kind of a kid. I was very skinny, very self-conscious, very unathletic. But my friends got into basketball and I started playing basketball. At the time, the only thing I had going for me was I was a little bit taller than them. And in elementary school, I could dunk like a golf ball on the 7-foot hoop, And at the time that was something impressive that I could do that other kids couldn't do. And that started an interest in basketball, and that really helped me gain self-confidence. And from there, I ended up joining a gym over time and developing more strength. And through athletics, it really helped me personally in other areas of my life, not only to come to love athletics, but it helped me come out of my shell and develop into a more complete person, really. And so I've never lost my love of athletics since then. And over time, it's zigged and zagged. And as you get older and you mature, you start to look a little deeper. You start to look at things like longevity. You start to look at, can I play basketball forever? And if not, what am I going to do next? Which is how I got into triathlon, actually. I actually had a fitness routine of basketball and lifting weights till I turned 40. I mean, from my teens to 40. And finally at 40, I couldn't jump as high, wasn't as quick. And I was sick of having some injury somewhere.
Right. Yeah, quite common that happens. So what did you do about that?
Well, as I was getting towards 40, I was trying to figure out, what am I going to change? I'd loved basketball my whole life. This was painful. And a friend of mine did a mini triathlon. And I thought, that sounds awful. Running, biking, and swimming, and the repetition of it. And it just didn't sound very fun to me. But he told me, no, it was really, really awesome. I felt so fulfilled after I figured out how to swim decently. And I went out running and I got a bike. And I thought, well, I'm gonna change into something else. And running, biking, swimming sounds like a really good all-around health regimen. And so I tried it and I got hooked. I did my first, I literally on my 40th birthday stopped playing basketball and consciously shifted to triathlon. It was really kind of an interesting thing. It was kind of my, just kind of put basketball behind me and headed in a new direction. Got myself some running shoes, bought myself a bike. I couldn't swim. As a matter of fact, I had fear of open water. I had actually a really bizarre, silly fear for a grown-up to have about swimming in open water. But I literally had like minor panic attacks. Once I got out where it was over my head, even though I soon became an okay swimmer in a pool, I would literally just lock up and have this irrational fear come over me once I headed out into the lake. So it took me quite a while to overcome that, probably 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, my first triathlon was a disaster. It was an embarrassing thing where it was a 3-point swim where you go from the beach out to one buoy, then to cross to another buoy and back to the beach. And by the first buoy, I was already like hanging onto that thing, trying to overcome a mild panic attack while everyone passed me. And then I made it to the second one and then I made it back. But then when I got out of the water, I was so embarrassed about being the last person out of the lake that I really turned it on. I got on my bike and I went really, really hard. And I got on the run and I started catching up to people and passing people, and it became better then. But anyways, that's over time, I got better at it from there.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point here, and that is how oftentimes fear and anxiety hold people back from being their own self. But somehow you're able to go in there and face the shame or the humiliation and the fear and all those kind of negative things. What was it for you? What do you think had maybe triggered those feelings? And then how were you able to overcome them?
Okay. This is where your guests are going to think I'm a completely insane kind of a person or someone who believes in aliens or something. But
beautiful. That's what we love, because I think we're all a little bit crazy. We just hang around with people with the same craziness, so we don't notice it as much. So,
okay, well, here's my crazy. I grew up in Kelowna, British Columbia, on the Okanagan Lake, and there's a sea monster called the Ogopogo in the Okanagan Lake.
Yes, right? We've all heard about it.
From being a child, I was raised on a lake that has a legend of a monster in the lake, and right. So, although I never really, gave that much credence or anything, that was part of the whole psyche. And so it probably came from there, and I just never really got rid of it, which is funny because when I was a kid, I played in the lake all the time. I didn't have a problem. We went to the beach all the time. It was only later as a grown-up when I started swimming that I had these panic attacks.
Very interesting. Maybe some association of being in the shallow part of the lake, because you mentioned when you got to the deep part, that's when the fear came in. So how did you overcome it?
I wanted to complete a triathlon, and it was my goal. And I kept on swimming in the pool. I joined a swim group that swam in a lake once a week on Tuesdays. So I would join them. And luckily, we met at a beach where the lake was very shallow for about half a mile. And so if I ever had an episode, right, or I just started hyperventilating or whatever, I could literally stop 300 yards out and stand up and just regain my breath.
Beautiful.
So I just persisted. I never really got any professional help or anything. I didn't really even think about that. I don't know why, but I just, for whatever reason, I just kind of powered through it. And it just took repetition, just over and over and over, and just facing it.
Yeah, the continuous exposing oneself to one fear is eventually allowed it to alleviate. Makes sense. I think a lot of people today are really need to apply that in other areas of your life, because there's healthy fears and then there's irrational fears. And what's interesting is we're kind of living in a term where the fears have become completely irrational on a massive level on society. and are not properly qualified, but the feelings that come up around them are legitimate, and those need to be managed and mitigated, and one through exposure, one through intervention. So take us a little further. So you got into this swimming, you went from the buoy to buoy, and then you came into biking. So then how did you end up, I mean, that's a long ways from a person that's finishing, at the Olympic distance national championships in Vermont. So how did you progress up that ladder?
Slowly. I started when I was 40. I did the national championships when I was 48. So I just kept doing races. I made triathlon my thing. I got very serious about it. In the winter, I trained hard. I went to the pool. I got on a cycle if I couldn't go outside. Got on a treadmill if I couldn't run outside. I got coaching along the way. Didn't always have a coach, but to do the national championships is quite difficult, and you have to qualify. You can't just enter and show up.
Right.
You have to win a race in your age division in a qualifying race, and so you can't just enter some podunk little rec center's triathlon. You have to enter a triathlon organization certified race with generally hundreds of other people and win your age group. And so that was quite a big goal. And so I got a coach to help me with that. Swimming was my weakness. Even after I overcame the fear, I still was not a fast swimmer. I don't have the body type for a swimmer. I have the body type of a runner. So, right. And that was my strength. But if you look at guys like Michael Phelps, right? He's got huge hands, long body, short legs, and the genetics of a swimmer. I'm exactly the opposite. Long legs, I'm a skinny guy. My hands aren't that big. My arms aren't that big. And so I just don't move myself through the water. I tend to be what they call a sinker, right?
I'm in that boat. When I took swimming in university in my exercise physiology program, we would do mechanics of swimming, and we'd have to do all these tests, and I would literally sink below the surface of the water in the float test because the density of my bones and my musculature made me sink below the water. And nobody could catch me in 25 meters of the pool, or 50 meters, I guess the thing was. Like, I was the fastest guy in 50 meters, but we couldn't even see. You couldn't even see like what my style was. It was just this foam and water splashing. It was like this all-out thing. And by the time I hit the end, that was it. I was done. I was good for one length of the pool, and it was all over after that. And we used to laugh. And my teacher, she gave me a passing grade for effort on my stuff, not because I was. She said, "You don't have very much of a potential as a swimmer," and that was the end of my swimming career, so to speak. And,
well, you'd have beat me both ways, because I wasn't a fast sprinter or good at the endurance side. It was a lot. It was literally years of work for me to become proficient. I took lessons. We've got a great triathlon coach here locally, Heath Thurston. He's actually a nationally recognized triathlete and a great coach. He helped me a ton. Keena Scherer, another local coach, helped me a ton. And basically, and I think a little life lesson here, because it's not about me or you here, right? I understand that everyone listening, we're trying to help them, right? So I think a lesson I could pass on that I learned here is that what I did is I worked really hard on my strength. My strength was running. And if I was going to be the last guy off my bike, I could catch you. I could run you down.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And I think that's a big thing in life. Find your strengths and work it.
That's right. And what I found out was, as I talked to my coaches, they said, look, here's the deal. You're never going to be a great swimmer, not to be negative. You're not going to be a great swimmer. So if you can do a 25-minute mile, that will be good enough, because your bike and your run is where you're strong. So we're not going to make you a 20-minute mile swimmer.
Right.
But you've got to be able to do a mile. If you can't do a mile in 25 minutes, you're not going to make up the time on your bike and the run. So I worked enough on my swim, a lot on the bike, and mostly on on my run. And that's how I did it.
Wow. Very, very interesting. And I think that's the value of having professional coaching in a person's life is they're able to be objective in the areas where you might not be, or to add insight or strategy and technique where you can kind of go into the areas that need the work and mitigate the areas that aren't going to grade that well. Now, you took that journey. It's a long journey. You overcame a lot of fears. It is Spartan stuff. So I want to talk a little bit, maybe shift gear a little bit, because you've kind of developed this Dirobi diet. Maybe you want to talk about what that is and how did that evolve through your training? Did that evolve after you competed? Like, how did that come out in your life?
Okay, so a couple thoughts. First of all, I am a reader. I read a lot, and I always have. I've always loved to read. Back to my childhood of being very shy. When I wasn't doing stuff with other kids, I was reading books, and I've always been that way. I've read over 700 books on health, and that may sound absolutely insane to people listening.
Quick stop on that. Quick stop before we go any further. What would you say is the most impactful books that you've had in your career? Because I'm a big reader of books as well, and they can be health books, they can be philosophy books, they can be what ones do you think, if you can say maybe 5 that made your top impact?
Yeah, well, the number one I would say for sure is probably not the number one on many other people's charts, but it's number one for me because it had the most impact on me, and that's called Body for Life by Bill Phillips.
Oh yeah, Body for Life, Bill Phillips. A lot of people don't realize, who are newer to the game, I guess, of health and fitness. And of course, he came to light in 96, 97, 98 with a company called EAS. And he had a magazine, Muscle Media. And then he started creating physique transformation. So the whole thing of the before and after pictures, the 12-week transformation, and rewarding people. He gave away his Lamborghini, I think, in the first one. And then he got into these contests, and then he built these categories, and then he created a book, which really spearheaded the whole transformation business and putting definitive proof, not for professional athletes or professional bodies, but for real people in the real world. So yeah, massive contribution from Bill Phillips to the world of health and fitness. And I think marketers ever since have built off what he established now it's like almost 25 years ago.
I agree. I think he was a category creator.
Yes.
Like you said, with the body transformation thing. And I did it, and it worked. It was one of those few health things I did that I was like, I'll do this. I took the picture with the newspaper with the date to prove when you started, right?
Yep.
I did the whole thing. And like I said, I had been playing basketball 3 times a week with a group of guys. On the off days, I was lifting weights, but I was just maintaining a level of health that was good enough. But I read that book and I did the 90-day thing, and people were going like, Dave, what'd you do? Dang.
Right.
And I'd never really had that before, right? Like, I put on some muscle. I felt better. Like I said, I'd always been the skinny guy, right? Now, a lot of people listening are like, shut up. We deal with trying to lose weight, try that world. Right. I understand that. But again, there's issues on both sides. If you've been, the body image thing, whether you think you're overweight or too short or too tall or too skinny, it's all the same internally, right? In a sense that you're not feeling enough. At the basis of this is not feeling complete, not feeling whole, not enough. And so it may seem shallow to some people. I don't really care. I'm just saying, for me personally, as a guy who was always skinny, right, to transform my body and put on enough muscle that 90 days later, people are telling me, you look good. That was a very affirming thing. It was confidence building. It was not just feeling good in the gym. It affected my whole life in a positive way.
I can relate to that because when I was a teenager and I got started in the world of bodybuilding, and this is a part that a lot of people miss because a lot of people think how narcissistic it might be or these type of things, and they project onto it a lot. And sure, there are people that it becomes that. But I think a lot of people miss that in a world where there's a lot of things that we cannot control, life is full of things that we cannot control and things that maybe impact our self-image. Lifting weights, changing your body type, whether that's losing body fat, adding a bit of muscle, getting stronger, you're able to see how you can apply a practice in your life that you're entirely in control of, and you can see progression. And to me, it is the progression, and then eventually you get acknowledgement for the progression. That is a game changer because a lot of people go to school, for example, and they're told that they're a C grader or a B grader. They don't get that feedback. Maybe they get into athletics. They're not a great sports person, or they're not, they don't get, they're not the quarterback or the star gymnast or whatever it happens to be. They struggle in these areas of life. Maybe they go to work and they're working, they're buried in a big organization as a white collar worker, or they're a blue collar worker out there who are doing essential jobs, fixing the power lines when they're down, fixing the plumbing when things are going, plowing the roads of snow, whatever it happens to be. But they don't get that feedback. But here is something that people can get that feedback that reminds them that they can achieve goals. They can achieve progression. And I think this is the greatest value I've seen in the entire fitness industry. And I think that Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was my model early on in my career, he told me in his books, you can achieve anything with hard work, self-discipline, and a positive attitude. Well, everybody I knew worked hard, but self-discipline and a positive attitude were new concepts. And to work out and apply these things like Bill Phillips told me, you start doing this. And all of a sudden, in a world where I had no control over everything, I had something that I could progress in. And that was very empowering. So it's so glad that you actually shared that, because I would like for our listeners to recognize the past doesn't matter. It's what you're going to do with your future, and you have more power to change your life than you think. So sorry, I go on a tangent, but I'm so glad that you shared that, because it's so important for people to get today.
And corollary to that, things change over time. It's nice when you mature to the point that your body doesn't matter near as much as it used to, right? Exactly. So that's also true. Is that there's certain times in our lives, like for a teenage boy versus a teenage girl, where these body image issues, they may be different gender-wise, or your situation, or whether you're too skinny or too overweight, or whatever it is that you're dealing with in your life fitness-wise, right? It is nice to get more mature and grow up and realize I don't really care anymore what people think I look like. But what I think you're pointing out that is so powerful is that along the way, you've developed life skills that serve you in everything. If you can learn to have a positive attitude and be disciplined with your body, you can do it with your business. You can do it with your spouse. You can do it with your children. You can do it with everything. And so that's why it's an underlying, our health and our mental attitude and our skills are what add up to quality of life. So that's why it's so meaningful.
Very, very well said. So that was a kind of a TSN turning point for you that kind of fueled all of these kind of developments.
It was. And then, so to get back off the tangent and where you were trying to get me to go, we talked about the books and everything. So I've always been an avid reader, and I've always loved health. So I've read a lot of books, but it was all for me. I never was in the health industry. But over time in my career, I became a marketer, right? I had different positions in marketing, and had a massive failure in 2009 where I was out of work. I'd been the director of marketing for a healthcare company when suddenly we were all laid off, the whole branch, just over, game over.
Right.
And I was driving home literally from this shock. They were generous. We had a nice severance check, so it could keep us going a little while. But it was a shock I wasn't prepared for. I'd been self-employed for the most part before that job. For the most part, I built a business and sold a business, and I'd been in sales, and I'd mostly been my own boss, other than this one job, which I really enjoyed, actually, working in the corporate kind of setting with this group. When suddenly it ended, which reminded me why I liked being self-employed in the first place. So I've gone through this life experience of building a business, selling a business, and doing a variety of entrepreneurial things, finally getting a job, having it end. And I call a buddy on the phone. I'm like, I just got laid off. I finally went the corporate route. It was going really well, and now it's over. Have you got anything? I got to figure something out. He's like, Dave, you're a health guy, and you're not a good employee. Why don't you start a business? Why don't you sell supplements or help people in weight loss or do something in the health space? And so I don't know anything about that stuff. Like it's all been my own hobby. And he goes, well, look, 60% of Americans are overweight. Start there. Help them lose weight, right? So I thought, okay. And literally, I looked into weight loss. I looked into what was working for people at the time and what things people were interested in. And went to a formulator, worked out a product. Dan helped me with this whole way. I owe him a huge favor for really helping me in this area. Hooked me up with a lab, helped me understand what was going on. We developed a product, and it went crazy. We put this online in November 2009, and by July 2010, we couldn't keep up. That's great. We were selling thousands and thousands of units a month, bringing on thousands of customers a month. All of a sudden, I had to hire staff. We had 5 full-time support reps. It was going through the United States like wildfire with word of mouth. People call us on the phone. Hey, a teacher here at my school. I'm a teacher at a middle school. I just went to the lunchroom. This lady lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks with you guys. How did she do that? And we had all these referrals and all these online success. But with that came an amazing life lesson, because like I said, I'd always been the skinny guy. I'd never dealt with weight loss. I had no idea about the struggles of it. I had no idea about the pain of it. I had no idea about the social elements where children are raised in environments where they're overweight from being very young, and then maybe lose a bunch of weight at college and go home and show up so happy to show their mother that they're fit for the first time in their life, only to have her say, oh, honey, you look sick. Let's feed you.
Right.
I did not know about that world and everything that went along with it. And so suddenly we had tremendous business success in combination with tremendous heartache and being introduced to people's stories of difficulty and yo-yo dieting and a life of trying to achieve ideal body weight and wondering, why can everyone else do it and I can't? And this is a super long answer to your short question. That was how the Dirobi diet developed, because what we were doing was helping people lose weight rapidly. That was the whole MO. Look, just take a short time in your life, 3 weeks to 2 months, whatever, and let's just do a really rapid weight loss regimen. Cut the calories back, take a supplement. Our supplement is called Pounds and Inches drops, and that's what we still sell. It's a weight loss drop you can buy on Amazon or website, whatever. But that was the product, and it's designed to help with appetite suppression, and it has ingredients that have clinical studies showing that they reduce weight, reduce blood sugar and cholesterol. And so you take the supplement, but it was in conjunction with a rapid weight loss diet of low calorie, right? The supplement was just designed to help you through the diet, really. The supplement was not a magic, take this and you'll lose weight. It was take this with a low calorie diet, try to lose weight quickly. And that's cool. And people love that. People love to lose weight quickly. But what I did not have was what now? Because what happens is if people lose the weight and then they go right back to the same lifestyle they had,
they gain it back plus more.
They put it back on. Yeah. And so that was a struggle for 5 years, I would say. For about 5 years, I dealt with this. And finally I got my health certification. I struggled with it. We tried to teach people. I wanted people to have long-term success, but I didn't have a good answer until we came up with the Dirobi diet, which really came out of my training as a precision nutrition coach. I mean, I give so much credit to precision nutrition. I'm sure, you're in the health industry. You're probably aware of it. Dr. John Bernardi and his crew.
Yeah. One of my my naturopathic doctor, who was also on the podcast by the name of Dr. Paul Maximus, was one of his number one coaches. He was in the Scrawny to Brawny program and became very successful at that, and was a top coach with his organization, and then ultimately moved on to become a naturopathic doctor. And he serves as my naturopathic doctor in Vancouver.
No, I met him at FinCon, Maximus.
Yeah.
He has a book, right? Big guy, tall. He's got a picture of himself on the cover.
And he's just shredded. He's a great guy. He's an awesome human being. So yes, Berardi has done an incredible service to the world as well, very much like Bill Phillips, in kind of a different dimension of kind of spawning all of these really good coaches. And the thing about coaching, I think this is a little segue for our listeners in what dealing with hundreds or thousands of people ends up doing for you as a fitness professional. And Matt and myself coached, I think, over 15,000 people when we started our program over a number of years. And we were both personal trainers and physiologists and nutritionists. You start to recognize, oh, wait a minute, there isn't all one size fits all. Oh, we do have to make adaptations for genetic variants, for calorie consumption, for body types, for lifestyle, for age category. And when you get to coach a lot of people, you be able to cultivate some first principles that are ubiquitous, but then the tweakology components. So tell me, how did this lead into the Dirobi diet system?
The Bioptimizer mission is to help more of the world fix their digestion at a core level. The truth is, your digestion is only as good as your enzyme levels. Imagine trying to build a house with a tree. It's impossible. You need to chop the tree down into small pieces. Similarly, in order for your food to be used by your body, it must be broken down into a bioavailable form. And that's what enzymes do, converting protein into amino acids, fats into specific fatty acids, and carbohydrates into usable energy units. We start out with an abundance of enzymes, and that's why kids can digest just about anything really quickly. The thing is cooking food kills enzymes, as they cannot survive at temperatures above 118 degrees. So years of this ends up depleting our bodies and leads to weak digestion. Taking digestive enzymes like masszymes, which has an incredibly high level of protease for digesting protein, as well as other critical enzymes like lipase, amylase, and others, is a total game changer. Suddenly, you strengthen your digestion, eliminate gas and bloating, boost metabolism, and multiply your energy. Most importantly, you fix your digestion at a core level. To get started with Masszymes and to save 10% on your first order, go to masszymes.com. That's masszymes.com, and use the code MASS10, MASS10.
Well, what happened at first when I got my certification is I tried to just put people through the precision nutrition program. That was my whole goal. And that's a 1-year-long program. I'm a huge fan of it. I've had plenty of people take it. The problem is that a lot of people just don't want to do a 1-year plan. People are looking for something simple.
Yeah.
And so although I'd been through precision nutrition, which is how I was introduced to the program, I'm more of a long-term guy. Like I said, I'm kind of a geek. I like to read. I was all in. So I couldn't understand, why are other people not all in? But for whatever reason, it was hard to sell. It's just hard to get people to do. And I was offering it free. I wasn't charging. I was like, I'll put you on this. You're taking our product. So I just want you to follow this to keep the weight off. And giving it away, I couldn't get people to adhere. So that was really shocking to me, really surprising. And I finally just thought, people are busy. We live in a world where people just are like, they wake up in the morning staring at a screen, and then they take care of their kids. They go to work. They've got a lot going on, and fitness is one part of their world. And very few people are going to add a whole course into their world. And I was looking for something that thousands of people a month could get on and follow very easily. And I was also looking for something that was lifestyle based, so that it wasn't a diet. That's why we specifically called it the undiet.
Right.
And so that's how it evolved. And it really just a matter of had to come up with something very, very dead simple.
Beautiful. And so can you tell us a little bit about the Dirobi diet and what makes it unique and effective for people? And so give us your best sales pitch is what I'm basically saying.
my best sales pitch on something you can download for free at my website and put on your fridge.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Because that's what it is, right? I'm just trying to, these are the 7 principles we teach people. And really it's precision nutrition distilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the one difference that precision nutrition is incredibly strongly scientifically based. And the science behind intermittent fasting is still not advanced enough for them to embrace it as part of their MO.
Right. Where you guys do.
Where I do. It's
beautiful.
Far enough down the track for me. So let me tell you them in order, though.
Please do.
Number 1 is stop drinking calories, especially during a weight loss phase. Just don't drink juice. Don't drink alcohol. Commit to water 100%. Yep. And too many people are drinking their calories, sodas. And even juice, people think, oh, it's okay. I'm having orange juice. I'm having apple juice. No, even those, just don't drink any calories. That one change could be the few thousand calories a week that you're just having 100%. Too much that your body is not able to overcome. Number 2, this is a shocking one to people, but when you eat and how you eat is more important than what you eat.
Mm.
And so the next thing we need people to do is eat all their food slowly and mindfully. So before we even talk about what to eat, how you eat it is critical. Eat it very slowly and mindfully.
That's a technique out of actual Hindu philosophy too, Ayurvedic. Be mindful in your approach.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, let's be mindful in everything, right?
Yes.
Ideally, we should do every single thing in our lives mindfully. But here in this case, if I can just get a person to start eating slowly and mindfully. So yes, it's absolutely an Eastern philosophy that is long overdue in the West.
Totally. Number 3.
Number 3 is intermittent fasting. Eat within a fasting window. Now, I don't need people to go crazy with this. I don't talk about expanding your daily intermittent fasting into weekends and then into week longs. I don't go into any of that. All I want people to do is I want men to eat all their food in a 6 to 8 hour window and women a 10-hour window. And there's hormonal reasons for that difference.
Yep.
And the biggest thing, this is what no one gets about intermittent fasting. You're a coach, and see if you don't agree with this. The biggest benefit of intermittent fasting is what people don't eat after dinner.
Yes, exactly. It's so easy to get outside of your caloric totals in a what I would call a calorie dense society. So every hour that you're eating, the opportunity to go over that effective rate, whether that's your maintenance weight or whether that's your reduction weight, is so easy to do if the longer the window is. And I do believe that is one of the big benefits of intermittent fasting.
Yeah, and do you know Craig Bonjoli, the great strength trainer up there in Canada? I think he's in Toronto.
I don't know him personally, but I know of some of his work. Yeah.
He was on my podcast and he said one of the greatest fitness nutrition lines I've heard in years. He said, Dave, nobody craves broccoli at 8:00 at night.
So true. So true.
I love it. So cut out food after dinner.
Yep.
And then in the morning, try to wait until you have breakfast. Quite simple. Beautiful. So that's number 3. Number 4 is eat according to the precision nutrition hand rules. Our hand is proportional to the size of our body. So it's a great gauge to use for how we should eat. And the hand rules from precision nutrition are to eat protein the size of your palm. Then if you close your fist, that's about the size of carb you should have. Maybe that would be a couple slices of toast, maybe for somebody. Maybe it's a potato, right? But a carb. Then healthy fat about the size of your thumb, it's roughly 2 ounces. And then if you hold out your open hand and you were to just put, green leafy vegetables, a small salad, whatever type of low calorie vegetables in there, that's it. Those 4 things: protein, a carb. People can get confused about the carb because a potato is a carb, but so is lettuce. The difference is we're talking carbs that have calorie density.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So eat healthy proteins, carbs, fats, and get 5 to 9 servings of veggies total per day. Those are the hand rules.
Beautiful. Okay.
The next is observe a simple supplement strategy. Very few people, even if you eat almost perfectly, are going to get all of the phytonutrients and zoochemicals that they need in their diet. You can test this. I do a test every year. I send in my blood work and I get a nutritional panel done. Even though I'm in the industry, I eat very well, I take supplements, I still end up with deficiencies somewhere or another, and I make adjustments. Now, if you can't do that or don't want to do that type of thing, go to that extent, at least learn to cover the basics. Get a multi and a mineral supplement. If you just got a good multi and a good mineral supplement, great. If weight loss is your goal, use supplements that help with that, whether appetite suppressants. There's all types of supplements that can aid a weight loss regimen. Then there's supplements you don't necessarily need, but maybe they make you perform better. For example, I do well on caffeine. A lot of people don't. Some people shouldn't take caffeine. Others perform better on caffeine. There's a lot of great athletic studies on caffeine.
Yep.
If I take a pre-workout before my workout, I get a better workout. Yep. I do. Do I need a pre-workout? No. But I sure feel like $1 million.
Correct.
And I feel like I get more reps, put more energy into it, and just feel better. So some people might say, well, Dave, that's a dumb thing for a health coach to say. No, what I'm saying is not you need to take a pre-workout. What I'm saying is come up with a supplement strategy based on your goals that supports what you're trying to do, starting with filling in deficiencies, then moving on to, if you've got the budget for it, the cool factor stuff. What are some or maybe not even cool factor, but I'm 54 years old now. I've put a lot of stress on my body over the years. And I take a turmeric product every single day. And if I stop 2 weeks later, my joints are more strong. I'm like, hey, I stopped taking my turmeric.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so there's age appropriate supplements. There's gender appropriate supplements. Many women do better on iron. Both men and women often do better on B12. So I'm just saying, figure out
the right supplements are right for you.
Pick the right
simple
ones
strategy
for you.
and adjust it on a regular basis, maybe a yearly basis or something like that. Yep.
That's it. And then the next one is exercise every day. Now I'm talking to the grownups here. I don't know who your demographic is listening to the podcast. Mine is typically people over the age of about 30 and through about 65 or 70. But once you get past the age where fitness is easy, everything changes.
It totally does. Yeah. And it needs to be a conscious built into your day.
Yep. And it needs to be 7 days a week. This is the thing that I teach people. Look, I don't even care if it's just a walk. If you're religious and Sunday you don't feel comfortable exercising, go for a walk, do a little yoga, do something that supports your spiritual practice. Also, don't work hard all 7.
Yes.
Maybe 2 or 3 of those only are strength training,
Right.
but then the others are mobility, working on strictly flexibility. Maybe you go for like, you have a rowing machine like I do. Maybe you spend like 20 minutes doing an easy row. I don't care what it is, but exercise 7 days a week, because
Beautiful.
as we get older, we've got to work on our flexibility, our strength, our mobility. We want to work on our longevity. We want to have good joint health. And a sedentary lifestyle is the main thing that's going to kill that. So by being
Totally.
active daily, that's how we compensate.
Beautiful. I love it. Was that the 7?
More.
Oh, there was one more?
Number 7 is sleep.
Sleep.
Everything comes together while you sleep. If you think about the first 6 things I just said, okay, so you've stopped eating after 6. Now the melatonin is rising, the sleep hormone, so that by the time you go to bed, your stomach is done digesting dinner, your melatonin is high, your blood sugar is low. It's a perfect state to go and have a really good night's sleep. While you're having a good night's sleep, your body is repairing. The tissues that you exercised in the morning are being built up during the night. The hormones are changing. Estrogen and testosterone in both men and women is rising. HGH is rising. You wake up in the morning feeling great, and you're going to be at that optimal hormonal state until you eat again.
Correct.
So now you exercise, right? With high HGH, high testosterone, high estrogen. Now, by the way, people might be confused. Why are you saying testosterone and estrogen together? Both men and both women have estrogen and testosterone. It's just a different ratio.
That's right.
So the HGH, testosterone, and estrogen are those hormones in the morning that now, this is why we feel like $1 million oftentimes in the morning. It's hormonal. And all of that is amplified when you're following these 7 principles that I'm talking about.
It's so simple, so easy, but yet so profoundly effective. Dave, where can they find out more about your work and what you're doing and everything for our listeners?
Dirobi.com, Dirobi.com. I also have a podcast. They could click on the podcast link if they want to hear any episodes there or see some of the guests I've had. I'm in the midst of creating. When will this episode go out?
It'll probably be out by the new year.
By the new year. Wonderful. By then, when you hear this, I will have a cheat sheet of these 7 principles that you could print and put them on your fridge if you like the 7 principles. So
I love the principles.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's taken, like I said, it's kind of a lifetime of development, really. And then all these different stories I've told you to finally condense all this down to those 7. So I appreciate that. But yeah, Dirobi.com, there's a resources page with a lot of free downloads and whatnot there.
Any final words for our audience?
Yes. Thank you for that. Final words, I would just encourage you to ask your why. Why are you listening to this podcast? Why are you interested in health? And ask that question 5 times. So someone might say, well, it's because I want to lose 30 pounds. Why? Well, because I want to fit back into my size 6 dress. Why? Because when I fit my size 6 dress, I feel terrific and sexy. My husband wants me. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, you got to drive deep on these things. Don't just go to the surface.
Drive deep. And then why? Why do you want your husband to find you attractive? You drive deep. Guys, girl, do whatever. I don't care what your background is, where you're from. Find out your deep, what really, really matters to you, and don't care what anyone else thinks of it. You know, what I talked about earlier about me looking better after an 80-day challenge, some people might say, well, that's really shallow. Hey, I don't care. I don't care what you think of it. It was really meaningful to me at that time in my life. And whatever is meaningful to you right now in your life and why you want to achieve a higher level of fitness, go with it, own it, love it. But you may not reach your goals if you don't connect with that very deep why.
Very beautifully said. There you have it, folks, from Dave Sherwin, the developer of the Dirobi Diet, the 7 easy practices to follow. You can get a copy of those for your fridge when you download. All the links will be to Dave's website as well as his social media, his podcast, and I'm looking forward to having that cheat sheet. It's a great reminder and certainly effective with all our coaches, athletes that we've worked through our own program. So beautifully said, and I love the simplicity of it. That's another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. I want to thank you all for listening, and we'll see you on the very next episode. Take care.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip. Turn cultured foods into superfoods. Raw fermented foods like sauerkraut and low sugar live yogurt can be good for you, but rarely have enough of the right probiotic strains for therapeutic benefit. So here's a way that you can turn them into superfoods. What I do is I get some raw sauerkraut or a healthy yogurt. Ideally, it's grass-fed or coconut-based, and you can empty 3 caps of P3OM into a container and mix it up thoroughly. Leave it at room temperature for a couple of hours before putting it back into the fridge. And what's going to happen is these probiotic levels will be multiplied. In fact, it doubles every 20 minutes. And then what you're going to get is you're going to have a food with strong proteolytic activity. To learn more about P3OM and why its patented strains make it the strongest probiotic available, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.